Hi, I'm Pastor Len Smith, interim pastor at Shepherd's Heart Fellowship here in Osceola, Indiana. Today I'm going to continue the series based on the book by Frank Ramirez called Brethren Brush with Greatness. The second one in the series that I'm going to talk about is a famous American by the name of George Washington. And Frank wrote a story called Brethren Who Fed George Washington. If you travel back east, you can find a lot of signs that say George Washington slept here. The first president of the United States is still visible in many places on the dollar bill, the quarter, in ads and parodies, and on posters. And rightly so. Washington was a towering figure, as human as the rest of us, and it's hard enough for his successors to fill his shoes. Well, how about changing the title? Instead of George Washington slept here, how about George Washington ate here? If eating was involved, you can be pretty sure there were brethren near at hand. And so it was in this case. This story comes to us from James Quinter, a Brethren teacher, preacher, and publisher in the May 28, 1878 issue of the magazine, The Primitive Christian and the Pilgrim. Quinter had traveled to Virginia in order to officiate at a funeral and lead a week's worth of services. One of the people visited was Jacob Forer, who told Quinter the following story about his mother and her memory of having dinner with George Washington. Ms. Ebersole, Quinter never mentions her first name, was just a girl when Washington came calling in the Hagerstown, Maryland area to find a site for our nation's new capital. The general's company had its cooks and many of the conveniences needed for the preparation of the dinner. There were some things, however, they desired the family to furnish, as these were at once supplied. Sister Forer, Ms. Ebersole, remembered the manner in which the company partook of the dinner, or the way in which they conducted themselves at the table. When they were seated, some 30 or more in number, General Washington said grace, and there was no levity at the table, and no more talking than what the occasion called for. After dinner, the general conversed pleasantly with Mr. Ebersole upon such subjects as he thought would be most agreeable to his host. When the company was about leaving, the proper person asked for the bill, but he was told that the honor of entertaining such a company was a sufficient compensation. George Washington, however, took out a $10 gold piece, and when it was refused, he threw it down with the remark, "Give it to the girls." And who exactly scooped up the gold coin? A considerable sum in those days. Certainly the dinner itself was provided by Washington, who traveled with his own cooks. Did the visit to the Ebersoles really happen? The exact details are probably impossible to determine. The present account is a retelling from memory by James Quinter of a visit with Jacob Forer, who remembered an accounting of the event remembered by his mother, who was reminiscing the actual event many years before. Two things seem clear. The first is that the family remembered they had been visited by George Washington. That's a sort of singular event that sticks in family lore and is probably based on truth. The second is, if General Washington actually used his own cooks, he missed out on a genuine brethren meal served up by an honest-to-goodness brother and sister. Too bad for him. Or maybe it's just as well. Had Washington become addicted to brethren cooking, he may have found it even more difficult to fit into his clothes. Thank you for listening to the second story about Brethren Brush with Greatness, and we invite you to watch any of our services online or attend in person our life application classes or regular morning worship at 10 a.m. Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another story about Brethren Brush with Greatness.